Sports Radio The Ticket, Idaho's first and original all-sports station. Sports Radio 93.1 FM and 1350 AM. The Ticket.
This past weekend in Baltimore, there were no fans at an NCAA regional at the Division III level. One of the coaches in the game is a guy I've known for a long time. He was our assistant when I was the broadcaster at Bucknell. His name is Don Friday. His Penn State Harrisburg team won the Northeast Atlantic Conference, and they were down in that regional at Johns Hopkins, playing both Johns Hopkins and Yeshiva. Don, first of all, congratulations on winning the league championship this year.
Hey, thank you, Bob. It's great to be with you and Chris this afternoon.
Well, we're glad to have you. So what was it like? You coached twice with no fans. It was just officials, the scorekeepers, or whatever else is at the game to keep it going. What was it like coaching and playing in a game with nobody in the gym?
Hey, it was, you pause for a moment and you're like, is this really happening? And, because we've heard about this coronavirus and how it, was affecting overseas and how it's just kind of moved throughout the globe, right? And it's like, wow, this reality has really hit us. Last Monday when we did the pairings, we won the league. It's the first time we've ever been to the NCAA tournament here at Penn State Harrisburg. So it's our first, and everybody is just, over the top excited. We're all proud. It's been an incredible day. We have the selection show last Monday, and we have a great gathering here on our campus. And, there we are. We're sent to Johns Hopkins, which is an hour and a half down the road from our campus. And some of the schools here in Pennsylvania got shipped out to Ohio and in the Midwest. So, we love that. I mean, and our fans were energized for it. On Wednesday, our athletic department, one of our administrative assistants said, hey, did you notice there was a outbreak of some coronavirus on Yeshiva, one of the schools in your pod? And, you think about it, but you're kind of like, everything's going to be fine. On Thursday, now we find out they're talking about playing the game, maybe with some, trying to figure out how this is working. There's no manual on this. It's the first time we've really been through this. We're hearing things like pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. I go to bed Thursday night. I wake up about 5:45 on Friday morning to all these text messages on my phone, like people saying, hey, I'm really sorry to hear your game's been quarantined. So, now all of a sudden, not only are we in the NCAA tournament, we have our kids for the first time. Now we're trying to go and navigate some waters unbeknownst to us. So to say it was a major curveball would be a huge understatement.
So, and that was a great answer, going through the procedure of exactly how you found out. But from your understanding of what went on in those talks, what were some of the things that were being floated? What were some of the reasons given for the decision that was made? What was your feedback on all that?
I just think the whole idea about how this could spread and what really happened was there was a student at Yeshiva University whose father had come down with this. I believe he was out of the country traveling. So we knew that going in on Tuesday and Wednesday, but, we were monitoring it, and our athletic director, Rashawn Carlton, was in talks with the NCAA and with the site people. Because, on Monday with all these, just like I'm sure they do in the Division I tournament, there's conference calls with all the participating schools. And, it was brought up, but it was being monitored. It really started ramping up on Wednesday and Thursday. And then on Friday morning, there was also talk about now a lecturer at their institution through, media outlets had reported this. So now it becomes – it was a bit unnerving because we really don't know. We're getting ready to play a basketball game, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, "Hey, could we get sick?" Or, I'm not so sure. I mean, I wasn't as concerned about myself and maybe some of our kids in terms of they're talking about people that have underlying health issues or the elderly. Well, we have parents who are older, we have grandparents, and we have friends and family that maybe fit some of those criteria. So, that did go through our mind. I can say though that I felt that, like our athletic leadership, and I felt like the people at Johns Hopkins, this was very fluid and moving very quickly. They had to get their hands around this, and I think look at it from all angles. I know we were at the same hotel as the Worcester Poly Institute, and again, their coaching staff told me that 4 of their players then they elected not to play in that game. So here you are. It's the biggest moment in your career for some of these kids. It's the greatest time of the year to go to the NCAA tournament in March Madness. And now you have these decisions going on that, are affecting you. And it should be a time of celebration. But again, I guess, it comes back to health and safety and well-being. Some of these things are out of our control, but it was very, very fluid.
We're visiting with Coach Don Friday of the Penn State Harrisburg basketball team. They were in the NCAA tournament last weekend in Baltimore, played their game before no fans because of the coronavirus. You're listening to Bob and Chris on Idaho Sports Talk on Sports Radio The Ticket. So, Don, what was the reaction when you told your team that they couldn't have parents, they couldn't have family, they couldn't have friends at the game? Were people majorly disappointed? Were they understanding? What was?
I think they were, Bob, and here's the thing, though, too. In our age now, social media, some of these kids, I had text messages on my phone at 3 in the morning from some of my kids like, hey, Coach, did you see this? So I wasn't too happy the fact that our guys are at 3 o'clock in the morning ahead of this. But, at 5:45 now, we're trying to get ahead of this as well. The biggest thing we did, and, I talked to my AD. The first thing we said was going into this empty gym, right, it's going to be now like a glorified high-stakes scrimmage, which we play these, like in Division I, right, the super secret closed scrimmages that go on at the beginning of the year. So we looked at that from that standpoint. And, my AD, we talked about, hey, how do we approach it? And I also, my good friend Ron Verlin, who former head coach of Pacific. Ron, for the last 2 years, has been almost like a consultant for us, right? Talked to him a lot, almost daily. I talked to Ron and like, hey, you've been to the tournament with your teams, and, what would you suggest? And, hey, we got to keep it, even though this is a curveball, we got to make sure that we stay in routine. And the biggest thing, right, we talked about when we got to that game, and they did everything the same like if the place was sold out, from the starting lineups to the anthem to the sportsmanship policy to the referees and all those things. It was business as usual, except it was eerily silent. So we talked about the number one thing with our team. We had to focus on basketball. We couldn't focus on what we couldn't control with the crowd. So, we talked to our guys and, we said, hey, we don't know Johns Hopkins environment. Now, we were planning for that to be a sellout down there. We had about 200 fans. We had buses going down. Now, they're not coming anymore. The second thing we talked about, and this was, Ron and our AD we talked was, hey, energy and enthusiasm that we had to create. We had to take the place of that crowd and create that energy and enthusiasm. And right from the get-go against Johns Hopkins, we were a 15 seed going against a 2 seed. We had that, and we had that not just for 40 minutes, but for double overtime. And, if looking back on this, I'm so glad that we did not major in all the other extracurricular distractions. We tried to keep it about basketball, and I think we did a better job of navigating that. And I know our kids talked about that after the game, that we were focused on basketball the whole time. But trust me, as a coach, I was worried how we were going to react, how we were going to play, like really things I couldn't control. And I thought our kids did a great job of, being in the moment and controlling that, because this was our one shot at doing something great in March.
All right, I know you're not supposed to go with the two-part question, but I kind of have two parts that are related. Like, number one, as I'm looking at it from, I'm the voice of Boise State women's basketball, and who knows what the future is for that tournament and perhaps playing in front of a fanless arena. We just don't know. But, for Boise State women's basketball, they would be in a similar position to where they would play, at another team's venue as the road team, similar to what you guys had at Johns Hopkins. And I wonder, in a way, did having a fanless experience maybe help an underdog because there wasn't the crowd yelling and screaming against your team? And then just the second part of it generally is, I don't know, if you went into, what was it like? Because you went into the preparation of it, but when you were coaching and when the players were playing, what was that like?
Well, to answer your first question, there was no doubt, and I talked to our team about this, because here's the thing. When we went to Hopkins, we had no frame of reference of what that environment was be like. And we played in a lot of different environments over the years. Christopher Newport's was in our previous league, and they've gone to the Final Four. And Bob will tell you, that's Charlie Willem's brother, CJ, was at that school for many years. They were hostile environments. So I said to our kids, we don't really know what the Hopkins environment is going to be like. So for us right now, even though it's going to be fanless, right, we, when we play far, far away, there's times we don't have a lot of people make the trip. So we don't have a lot of people cheering us on, right? But for the Johns Hopkins kids, they, and again, you have to look at it as a purist. Hey, they worked really, really hard this year to get a chance to host a pod, to not have their fans there. For me to sit here and say it didn't affect them, it did affect them, without a doubt. But here's the thing. I would think that throughout the course of the day on Friday, they were thinking about, hey, we have no fans going to be here. This is going to be a change. For us, it was going to be business as usual. So that was one less distraction, I think, for us that we had to worry about. So we were all into the game, as opposed to them almost playing in a foreign environment with their group. the second part of that is when the game started, our kids were so into it, and I think we were so locked in making the next play that it almost became a thing where, I talked to our guys again that, hey, the fans are in the stands regardless, but we talk all the time about between the lines, hey, we're the gladiators, right? We're the guys between the lines that are battling each play out. We can't be playing to the crowd or worrying about the crowd. So the fact that our kids created that energy and that enthusiasm with our bench guys, and our kids on the floor at times coming out of timeouts would be like, hey, we need more from you guys. Let's go. Keep it up. That was really, really key. And I think that, the first 5 minutes of the game, like every coach says, is winning time, right? The first 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes of the half, and the last 5 minutes of the second half is when you have to be at your best. And I think all three of them, we really, really, played to the best of our ability to put ourselves in a position to win.
Listening to Idaho Sports Talk with Bob and Chris, talking with Don Friday, the coach at Penn State Harrisburg. They played without fans at their pod in the NCAA Division III regionals this past week. And Don, as we finish up, if this were to happen in the next week or so at the men's tournament, how do you think it will change things? And do you think maybe they will play without fans?
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if this rears its head again, but I think a couple things for us. Another example, between our shoot-around on Friday and, our shoot-around on our practice on Thursday into Friday, in the case of Yeshiva, they had to come in. We had about a 2-hour gap between our game on Friday afternoon. They played at 1:30, and again, it was their Sabbath, so they had to be back to their hotel before sundown. They played at 1:30. We had our game moved back to 7 p.m. that night because they had to come in with a company that actually had to clean the gym, clean the locker rooms, clean the balls, clean the benches. Almost like that same level of cleanliness or the way they would do an operating room or they would clean operating room material because they wanted to make sure that it was a safe environment. But the question that you asked and I think about going forward is, hey, it's really hard when you're telling seniors and some of these families, hey, you can't come to a game. Or when you think about the incredible amount of money on the men's side of the NCAA Division I tournament, could it almost become a thing where they say to fans, hey, come at your own risk, or you have to understand there are possibilities, but that could be the same way getting on a bus or getting on a train or going through the airport. I mean, they're the risk we take, but I think for us right now we become a test case. But remember, in Division III, the amount of money and the amount of corporate sponsorship dollars is a drop in the bucket compared to what it is at that highest level. And I wonder how that, I just wonder how the powers to be, as they create precedent, how they'll address those issues. Because I think it's only a matter of time until this is going to rear its head again on a major campus. Mm-hmm.
Don, thanks so much for visiting with us, sharing what it was like to be in your situation last week. So happy you guys won the championship. Now next year you can repeat at Penn State Harrisburg.
You betcha. And Bob, you think about it. We had a great trip to Boise, Idaho, our first year. We had to travel like 2,600 miles to get our first win against a school that was 110 miles from our campus. But what a beautiful place out there, and passionate sports space and wonderful, wonderful athletics. And I know they're lucky to have you. You were always the consummate professional with us here at Bucknell.
Thank you so much, Don. Say hi to Amy for me.
I will. Great catching up, Bob.
Okay, bye. And that is Don Friday. He was an assistant for us when I was at Bucknell, now the head coach at Penn State Harrisburg. And when he and the staff, Pat Flannery, head coach Chris, came, started the year 0-6, got the first win in Boise, Idaho at a tournament.
Wow, Seth, there you go. Going way back, using some previous connections to tell a story of a unique way to play and win and pull a huge upset. And there's a lot there that maybe at some point later on in the show we can kind of unpack that.
A lot to think about. Bogus Fest is coming back. 2 more days of the best tribute band, June 19th and 20th at Bogus Basin Ski Resort. Tickets are on sale now at bogusfest.com. Bogus Fest is an unrivaled tribute music festival experience featuring the greatest tribute bands in the nation. You can experience classic rock hits along with today's most memorable country stars performing on 2 stages atop the beautiful, majestic Bogus Basin Mountain Resort. This 2-day festival with shuttle service from Boise is available, and it features on-site camping along with summertime activities. And it's all brought to you by Snake River Pool and Spas and Dutch Bros Coffee. Coming up next in the update, the Mountain West secures 2 NCAA bids. That's next on Sports Radio The Ticket.